nature that would be more meaningful in the context of Paul's journey. And, this was the conversion that he had when he went out to preach Christianity. In our own movement, we don't really give him very much credit. Sometimes we criticize him for what he basically brought Christianity into. We don't mind. What I understood from being raised up in this church movement, that was Paul wasn't a success in bringing true Christianity to this world. So there's a lot to be spoken of in that regards. One of the things that I learned, I did go to Israel the year before, and this year we went in the footsteps of Paul. And going to Israel was an eye-opener. And I was sitting in one, I saw a lot of places that, I'm not going to go into the whole detail of the trip right now because there's a lot to be spoken of and I have to digest it and remember all these names and things, but I will just speak on a few things that, as I visit, like he said, some of these ancient places, 6,000 years before Christ, and there's a lot of these places like this. And so after visiting all these ruins, you start to see one rock after the other, realizing that, sometimes the ruins is built on top of another city, which is built on top of another city, which is because it's a strategical place. That's why they keep building on top of each other. But as I'm sitting there, I'm closing my eyes and thinking and hearing the voices and thinking, what do they speak? So what did Jesus speak? What was his language? Aramaic. How many people speak Aramaic in that time of history? Not very many. In that time when Jesus was there. So when I was doing the footsteps of Paul, as a Roman citizen, what did the Roman citizens speak? What was their language? Latin. Who said Latin? Latin, okay. Educated Roman citizens spoke Latin for law. Creeds of law, things like that. But the normal language was Greek. That was like French back in the time everybody spoke Greek. What they spoke was Greek. So him as a Roman citizen, but also a Jew, also an educated Roman citizen, spoke Greek. So that's why he could bring this gospel into this world that Jesus could never have brought into this world. And also many of his disciples wouldn't have been able to do it either. So that came to really start to respect what he did for Christianity, because Christianity may not have moved forward in the same way if he didn't take on that responsibility. All right, so that was a great thing that he did, and I want to say another thing. And just in my tour, I did go not just a tour of Paul, but I got to go to Istanbul and to many of the Ottoman Empire, what was created at that time, which was pretty interesting. Going to Istanbul was, this is the only places, right? Thank God for America. I really love America. Even Greece and all this European countries, our young people today have a great opportunity. Let us stop bashing this country and do like John said. God needs to be brought back into this country. This was the foundation of this country. Despite your God, whatever the God might be, let us love each other like Father was explaining. This is the higher realms of what Jesus taught. If we could share that with the Christians that we go, when Paul was going into where did he go to preach? He went to the temples. He went to the Jews. And guess what happened? He got beat up. Many times he got beat up. When he got beat up, what happened? He goes before, and Rome was the authority at that time, and he went to be judged by them. They actually broke the law and beaten up a Roman citizen without the right standards of trial, so they were punished. The Jews were punished for what they did against this Roman citizen. They didn't realize what the power that one has. As Americans, we are almost in the same position. So that was one understanding that I had about the authority that America has over the rest of the world, and what Jesus brought into our lives is the same thing Father's brought into our lives. And the message has to get out there, which is so important. how are we going to do that? That's when you look at our movement, Father was doing all the right things to make that happen. And hopefully some seeds have been planted that it will spread like it's supposed to. But going back to Istanbul, just a couple things that I was intrigued with. In Israel and in those countries, you don't see a lot of dogs or pets. This is just, I'm just blurring off some things about just observation. The dogs there, they're wild, they're just strays. They have a little tag on their ears that, they monitor them and let them go stray. And I asked, what's this all about? And Christianity actually has a characteristic of taking care of animals. Jews don't do it. Muslims don't do it. They don't have that. You don't see a lot of people with pets. You see stray things, laying cats and dogs. You don't see people with a leash and taking their dogs for a walk and things in Israel or any of those, even Greece, So that was one interesting concept that I saw Christians' love for animals, for the created world, which was different than Jews and Muslims in that sense. The other observation, just one of the things I was talking to a young man that was our tour guide in Istanbul. So we were talking about what's happening in the Islam world, because it is all Islam, pretty much. You don't meet Christians. So when you're there, that's their world. That's where they live. So to be something different, really, it's not like you really notice so much. So they have problems. He was explaining there's a big drug problem. The Muslims, they can't find the answers to the questions that they have. There's no jobs. They go to fight these wars because they get paid to fight. They give them purpose and meaning. So there's a lot of things that they're struggling with, which, when you think of it, we have to be able to resolve that. We have to be able to do something to help that. So it's no different than in America. When we think we have a drug problem here, it's actually worse. Their problems are worse. Their problems with immigration is worse. You think of immigration problems that we have in the country, it's good compared to theirs. It's great. At least we're getting people from our next door neighbors that are actually respecting in some way Christianity, or at least biblical teaching. But when you get people that are influxing into the country that are just basically radicals, and then they try to get into the East European countries, it's not a good situation for them or anybody else. So that was an interesting point. The Acropolis, when I'm standing there, they were talking about, this was like 1,200 before Christ. This is being built in Athens, right? It's a beautiful place on top of the mountain. And when I put this together more, I'll put it together with pictures and some kind of more step-by-step of Paul's journey. But what was very intriguing, so I'm sitting there looking at this, and they said it took them 1,300 years to build this. And I said, geez, how many generations is that? That's 40 generations, basically, I figured out. 40 generations. That means that kid's father took on that responsibility to build this. I don't know if you've ever seen the pictures of the Acropolis, but it's this huge place that they worship the gods, Zeus and Troy, and Titan, and all these other gods, right? So I'm there looking at this, and this is the gods before Christianity. So when you think of their gods, when you went to the museums and you looked at the statues of their gods, they all have families. These gods have families, they have children. And when you look at Christianity, some of the pictures, like Michelangelo's pictures, were actually, when you look at the statues that they did of their, it looked like Michelangelo was just copying their gods. A lot of the Christians' beliefs, I think, are based upon these foundations. And, it's just something I just observed in that area. And there's a lot of things that I'd like to share more about Paul and his contents of how he got his message out. I haven't formulated yet, but I just thought I'd just share that, with Israel and this trip, it actually enhanced my spirituality in a good way. It brought me to more respect for what Father has done. I have to thank my sister Cindy for inviting me to go with my mom and I to this trip. My wife wants me to convert my sister into our theology. It doesn't happen so easily. But I want to, my brother has been a missionary in Newark, New Jersey for over 15 years. Why he didn't go and why I went. Because when my sister used to come to visit me in Gloucester and in New York and a New Yorker, she came to visit me, she stayed with me. She went to mother's speeches, father's speeches, the bridge with my mom together. She hired one of our church members to be very well paid to work for her. She respects, anytime that I'm out with her, she always talks about Reverend Moon in our church in a very positive way. So despite her not being a Unification Church member, she has a lot of respect, I guess, for our contacts. And she thought that I would gain more to be able to bring this message that Reverend Moon has into this world better, being educated better. So she invited me, not my brother, Frank, which is basically a missionary person for 15 years dealing with the inner city people. It's like, why would she do that? So I think it's because the contents and foundation she has with our church and with what she sees that our church has to offer for this world. And she respects Reverend Moon's vision, and a lot of times we don't recognize that other people do. So I want to end that with the thanks for my mom and my sister helping me do this, and for you taking your time out to listen to me. And I will try to put something more inspiring for Paul's vision and message, okay? Thank you.